Alright class, welcome to our first trial with the flipped classroom experiment. We're going to go through a lot of things really quick, going to have some notes, objective, warm-up. We're trying to do this whole thing out of the class so we have more time in class to work on things we want to. Get into that computer lab, work on our CD project. Everything's going well so far, but you know me and technology, we're always having our issues. Alright, so let's get to this. There's going to be some notes, and I'm going to give you some instructions for how to deal with the rest of the flipped classroom assignment. It's very quick. If you need to see something again, you go back, rewind it, and play it again. I'm not going to spend too long on things because whereas in the classroom, I'd wait for you to take the notes, I know you can always pause it if you need to here. So that's all you need to do if you need more time to write something down. Okay, here we go. May 19th to 20th, 2012. Don't know when you're listening to this exactly, so I have to fudge it. The objective? Students will examine a primary source from the Battle of Gettysburg in order to identify details of the battle and explain significance to American history. That primary source, spoiler alert, that's going to be the Gettysburg Address. Alright, so for your warm-up, it asks you to turn to page 534 in your books, which you should have right there at home with you. You're going to be turning those into class pretty soon. I'm going to be recalling them, so get ready for that. But for now, turn there and answer me these two questions. The first one says, why did Lee march to Gettysburg? I know we haven't talked about the Battle of Gettysburg yet. We are going to have a lesson on that one specifically. However, the answer is still there in your book. So I want to know, why did Lee march to Gettysburg? What did he need there? And also, I want you to describe the Battle of Gettysburg for me. So take a moment and do that. Then when you're ready, the video will continue. Alright, why Lee marched to Gettysburg? Because he was after something his army didn't have. Now, I could tell you the answer more than that, but I'm not going to. I expect you to come to class with that answer tomorrow. Because that's one of the ways I know that you've been doing this, because I can check it then. As for describing the Battle of Gettysburg, again, I could describe it to you now. We're going to do more of that in our lesson. We're going to have a short summary here. But the main thing is that you get something written down in your own notes. So, the Battle of Gettysburg happens in 1863 in the middle of Pennsylvania. I mean, it's actually southern Pennsylvania when you look at it on a map, but that's still pretty scary to the Union. It's the farthest north Lee ever goes into Northern Territory. He's getting bold and brave. He thinks he can finally make a stand up there. So, what it ends up being is Robert E. Lee and the Confederate Army versus George Meade, who's now commanding the Union Army. He's one of those generals we talked about, who's in between McClellan on the one hand and Grant on the other. 58,000 men are going to die here in 3 days. Now, that seems like more than Antietam, and it is. But don't get fooled. Remember that Antietam is not the bloodiest battle in American history. It's the bloodiest day in American history. Antietam is a one-day battle. This one is 3 days. So, Antietam's considered bloodier because all the people that died at Antietam died within a 24-hour span. This one took 3 days to have this happen. The North is going to end up winning this fight. The North kind of dominates this one. It ends up being a very strong victory for the Union. And they actually declare this victory on July 4th. They are going to force Lee to march back home all the way to Virginia as fast as he can, running, basically, hoping that Meade doesn't attack him. Meade's not going to attack him, and we'll talk more about what happens with that when we talk about Gettysburg. So the painting is showing you this event, which we're going to talk more about again when we talk about Gettysburg. That's called Pickett's Charge. Basically, the thing to know about this is that the South rushed the North thinking that they were out of ammunition, they were out of cannonballs, out of musket, out of everything. They were dead wrong. What ends up happening is Pickett's Charge ends up with a whole lot of people marching across an open field. Remember, we talked about outdated tactics, but new weapons, those come into play here, and all those people are going to die. So the Gettysburg Address. This is going to happen a ways after the battle. It's called the Gettysburg Address because guess what? Happened in Gettysburg. The man giving the speech, well, we know that figure, right? President number 16, Abraham Lincoln. Gettysburg Address, what is it? Where is it, I should say? Is Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, like we just mentioned. When is it? 4 months after the battle, November 19th, 1863. So actually a little more than 4 months, because like I said, they declared that victory on July 4th. Now it's November 19th. Why is it happening? Well, they're dedicating a part of the battlefield as a cemetery. 58,000 men died. They have to be buried somewhere. Many of them were buried in mass graves or shallow graves. Gettysburg had torrential rains, tearing away the ground with erosion. And what is that bringing up? All the bodies. So they have to have a new way to deal with this, so now they're making an official cemetery. What is the Gettysburg Address? Really, it's just a short speech. 300 words long. That's not a lot. I've probably spoken more than 300 words already. In fact, I can pretty much guarantee it. Lincoln wrote it on the back of an envelope the night before he was going to speak. At least that's what you're going to hear or see if you research this, but it's actually not true. There's one of the most common myths about the Gettysburg Address, is that he wrote it overnight on the back of an envelope. He was trying so hard. It's not that he tried any less hard. It's just that he is known for thinking through his words very carefully. It's likely he wrote this over the course of several days, and he probably had multiple drafts. So the envelope thing is a myth. One of the big things to know about this battle is that many of the dead from the battle aren't buried. Some of them came up with the rains, like I said. Others were never buried in the first place. So when Lincoln gets there, Gettysburg is not all festive and pretty. There are stacks of coffins, one on top of the other, waiting to be put into the ground. Worse yet, there are horse corpses rotting on the open field. Why? Well, you don't bother burying animals until you've buried the men. The men aren't buried, so they don't even bother with the animals. They just let them rot. Lincoln knows what's up. He knows that the people, especially in Gettysburg, are going to feel really down, the soldiers too, so he really wants to pick their spirits up. He's trying to help them feel better, or at least get a sense of purpose. This is an image someone created where they took the words of his famous speech, the Gettysburg Address, and they made it into an image of Lincoln's face. I thought it was kind of impressive, so I thought I'd put it up here. Don't worry if you can't read this, you'll have other places to actually read the text. So, now time to play a small game, Where's Lincoln? If any of you are familiar with the Where's Waldo books, this is kind of like that. They may be before your time, though. I may be dating myself. That's fine. Point is, look in this picture. It's grainy, it's old, I know. Can you find where Lincoln is? Can you see it? Well, check if you're right. The answer is he is right there. That's Lincoln. He's not wearing that hat that you see in so many images. He is in the middle of a large crowd. It's really hard to pick him out, especially with the old graininess of the picture. So what happened? Gettysburg Address wasn't meant to be a huge speech. They had another speaker they had invited, this man down here, Edward Everett. He's a famous speaker from Massachusetts, known for his ability to keep audiences on the edge of their seats listening to him, and he does. For over 2 hours he speaks as the main speaker, and they are all listening attentively. They really want to know what he has to say. At the end, they're cheering, they're clapping. It's a great time for them. They really are feeling great. Lincoln wasn't even supposed to be there. They invited him at the last minute, kind of like, a friendly invitation. They didn't think he'd be able to come. They were inviting him on the idea that he would turn them down. They were really surprised when he said he would be honored to attend, and even more surprised when he said he'd like to say something at the ceremony. So now they're not sure what to do. They put him after Everett, the main speaker, and they'll see what happens. Alright, so Everett gives his speech. They're loving it. 2 hours long. They sat through the whole thing and listened. Now the president's turn. When Lincoln spoke, he took less than 5 minutes. Like we said, he only had a 300-word speech. At the end, the audience is dead silent. Lincoln's thinking this is going really badly. He thought it was flopped. He turned to his friend and said, "It is a flat failure, and the people are disappointed." He could not have been more wrong. So this is an image coming up from a major summer blockbuster, which you may or may not know the name of. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. I wouldn't watch that one for its historical authenticity, but I would watch it to get a good idea of what those period outfits might have looked like, because this is a decent image of what it might have looked like when he was given the Gettysburg Address. Just skip the parts where he's fighting vampires and things like that. Anyways, how did the people like it? That's the question. Well, first thing is, Edward Everett, the main speaker, he thought the address was so cool, he wrote Lincoln the next day to let him know that he thought it was a fantastic speech. In fact, later on, he's going to write Lincoln because he's putting together a book of the speeches said on that day at Gettysburg to raise money for war veterans. And he writes Lincoln specifically to ask Lincoln for a copy of the Gettysburg Address because he really thinks it needs to be in the book. So that's already the main speaker on your side. Charles Sumner, the same one that Preston Brooks beat in the head with a cane, called it a monumental act. Now, unfortunately, when Charles Sumner is going to do that, Lincoln will already be dead, and Charles Sumner will be saying this as part of Lincoln's eulogy. But it's still a really powerful thing to call a 300-word speech a monumental act. What does that even mean? Reporters are rushing to the telegraph office, probably pushing, shoving each other out of the way. Me first, because they know this is huge, and they're trying to get their word out first. They're rushing in there, telling their papers. It's going out to the whole world in a matter of minutes. And the people are going to find out. And how are they going to react? Well, we're following a pattern here. The public loves it. Gettysburg Address, easily one of his most famous speeches. So why does it matter, though? What's the big deal with this 300-word speech? The war has been going on for 2 years, since 1861 when they fired on Fort Sumter. It's dragging its heels. The Union has lost a lot of fights. Gettysburg was a huge victory, and they won another huge victory on the same day, Vicksburg, that we have already mentioned briefly. But that doesn't take away all the people that have died, especially not for these people in the city who are seeing all these rotting corpses and stacked coffins all around. People are tired of fighting. In the end, no matter what the cause for the war is, people get tired of hearing about all the death, the destruction, seeing their homes blasted out. It gets to be too much. You have to give them a reminder. So why fight? Well, that is what Lincoln is here to tell them. Gettysburg Address is a powerful reminder of why they're fighting, what they need to do, what they've come here for. It redefines the war effort. It's like the Emancipation Proclamation all over again, except the Emancipation Proclamation is remembered as an announcement to abolitionists, sure, to slaves. The common people have mixed feelings about it. Gettysburg Address, they do not. This is basically the same thing as a coach giving a powerful pep talk. They're, halftime, things are looking not too bad, you just turned it around a little bit, but you're really trying to get there. Coach comes in and says, all right, next half we're going to get them. That's what Lincoln's doing. And basically this is the effect it has. People are chanting, it drives this nationalist spirit. Now they're all about the U.S. cause. They remember why they're in this, and they are going to take it to the end. Speaking of the end, that's the end of our PowerPoint. If you've missed something in the notes so far, go back, watch it again. Take your time, record it slowly. The advantage of having video and lectures like this is you can stop me wherever you want me to. Something I said that you want to hear again, go back and play me again. A slide that we went through too quickly, just go back to where that slide is and pause. You'll also have the PowerPoint to download on your own, so you can just scan it yourself and take notes that way. The other thing you're going to have to do for the flipped classroom, well, there is an organizer. Like I said, the primary source you're looking at is the Gettysburg Address. That document is on the classwork and homework section. You can download it. It's going to be 15 mods 1 and 2, and then the document name. In this case, it's going to be primary source Gettysburg Address. And you're going to download that and do that along with the warm-up. Bring those into class. There's also one other thing you have to do for me. I'm going to have, in addition to this video, a video quiz. You're going to interact with the video itself to see if you really know what the Gettysburg Address is about. Try yourself out on that one. You don't have to tell me your score. You can if you want to. You can leave a comment on the video if you'd like. But in general, I'd say just keep it to yourself and maybe let me know tomorrow. Alright, I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Happy smiling faces or tired faces that don't want to be there on a Monday. I understand. But hopefully we'll be able to get to the computer lab quick and get you time to work on your CD projects. Alright, see you tomorrow.